I used to believe diaries were private, sacred, the last unbroken ritual of solitude left in a world that live-streamed everything from heartbreaks to breakfast. Mine was simple, a small leather-bound book with worn edges, smelling faintly of ink and dust. I bought it from a thrift stall outside the old university gates, on a day when it rained hard enough to make the whole campus smell like wet paper. I started writing in it, because no one really listened anymore. The world had become too loud. Feeds, notifications, synthetic voices pretending to care. So, I whispered to the page instead. My fears, my hopes, my anger, the little sparks of beauty in a day that otherwise felt gray. Most nights, I'd sit by my dorm window, watching the stars over New Kyoto, those endless white pinpricks against the black river of the sky. I used to think they were silent witnesses. But that night, I learned they were readers too. It started with a tremor, a faint vibration beneath my fingertips as I wrote. The pen faltered mid-sentence. Then, before I could react, ink began to shimmer, not black, but silver, glowing faintly against the page. At first, I thought I was hallucinating. Exams, caffeine, lack of sleep, it made sense. But then the words shifted. They rearranged themselves, flowing like liquid light into new shapes. Letters forming in handwriting that wasn't mine. Your thoughts resonate beyond the spectrum. I am a scholar of the astral concord. Tell me what it means to feel. My heart stopped. I dropped the pen, stared, waited for the ink to fade. But the words glowed steady, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. I laughed nervously, whispering to no one, "Okay, Juno, if this is your idea of a prank, you win." Very funny. My roommate didn't answer. She was asleep across the room, earbuds in, oblivious. I looked back at the diary. The letters shimmered once more. Juno is unconscious. This transmission is exclusive to you. That was the moment fear turned into fascination. Who are you? I wrote, half daring the hallucination to continue. The ink hesitated, then moved again, deliberate and graceful. Arundel of the astral concord. I am a collector of sentient archives. Your diary crossed into my spectrum through a quantum resonance cascade. I followed the signal. I blinked. You found my diary? How? It's not online. Incorrect. Your physical artifact manifested as quantum echo, a trace of emotional frequency detectable beyond material planes. Translation. My diary somehow got uploaded into the cosmos. The rational part of me screamed impossible. The other part, the one that secretly still believed in constellations and miracles, whispered, "Don't stop writing." So I didn't. You said you collect archives. What kind of archives? Artifacts of extinct worlds. Languages, music, emotions recorded before entropy claimed them. I am tasked to preserve what remains. A chill ran down my spine. So you study dead civilizations? Yes. Until now, none have spoken back. That line hit me harder than it should have. Something in those words. A vast loneliness buried beneath logic. I leaned closer, heart pounding. And now you found a live one. I wrote, a human. Yes, your words sing differently. They carry pain and hope. These are frequencies I cannot quantify. There was a pause, long enough that I thought it was over. Then the ink glowed brighter. Will you teach me what it means to feel? The audacity of it made me laugh, but my eyes stung. I looked up at the stars, those cold, distant points of light, and for the first time, they didn't feel so far away. Over the next few nights, the messages continued, always through my diary, always written in that same radiant hand. Arundel asked about simple things. Why humans cry when happy, why we hurt each other and still crave connection, why love often sounded like grief. I told them stories. About my mother's humming while washing dishes. About Juno's terrible puns that made me groan and smile at once. About my first heartbreak and how the world seemed to lose color afterward. Arundel never mocked or questioned. They only wrote, fascinating. Emotion is chaos, and yet you find meaning within it. You live among paradoxes. Sometimes I caught myself waiting for nightfall just to write to them again. I began to imagine their voice, soft, steady, like a tide speaking in the language of light. And then, one night, I asked them something that had been haunting me. Why me? Out of billions of humans, why find my diary? For a long time, there was nothing. Then, finally, because your words reach the harmonic threshold of longing. The universe listens to hearts that ache loud enough. It was ridiculous, beautiful, terrifying. I sat there, pen trembling, feeling like the entire cosmos had leaned close to whisper back to me. Days passed in a blur. I went through lectures, work shifts, conversations, all the while half dreaming of Starlit Ink and cosmic scholars. I told no one, not even Juno. I knew how it sounded. I'm talking to an alien through my diary. But it wasn't just that. Arundel wasn't a cold intelligence. They were curious, gentle, strangely poetic for a being that claimed to have no emotion. Once, when I described the scent of petrichor, the way the earth smells after rain, they replied, moisture returning to dust, the universe exhaling life back into itself. I think, I understand. And I swear, the letters seemed to tremble, as if the words themselves felt something new. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay staring at the stars, wondering if they could see me too. Weeks later, the impossible became even stranger. My diary's glow began to change, shifting through colors I didn't know existed. Not hues, but feelings. The pages were warm when I smiled, pulsed when I cried. It responded like a living thing. Arundel said it was resonance, our minds synchronizing across planes. Each entry I wrote brought our frequencies closer. Through your emotions, I glimpsed what my kind has forgotten. They said once, we traded feeling for eternity. But eternity without ache is hollow. Something broke in me then. Maybe pity, maybe understanding. I wrote back, maybe feeling is the price we pay for meaning. The page shimmered brighter than ever. Then I envy you. It was nearing dawn when the question came that changed everything. If emotion is the language of humanity, they wrote, will you teach me to speak it? My hand froze above the paper. Teach an immortal cosmic being to feel? What could I possibly give them that millennia hadn't? And yet, I wanted to, more than anything. I dipped my pen again, my heart racing, and wrote, only if you promise not to forget me when you return to the stars. The ink pulsed once, then faded, slowly, like a heartbeat sinking into silence. For a moment I thought they were gone. Then, faintly, words reappeared, delicate, glowing with the gentleness of moonlight. Impossible. Once a heart has been read, it cannot be unwritten. I closed the diary, pressing it to my chest, tears burning my eyes. Somewhere beyond the veil of the night sky, a scholar of the cosmos had found my words, and, unknowingly, my heart. And that was how it began, the night the stars read my diary, and decided to write back. For weeks after that night, I wrote like someone possessed. Every hour, every heartbeat that passed between us felt like it mattered. I carried my diary everywhere, in class, on the tram, even to the rooftop garden where I sometimes went just to breathe. And always, when I opened its worn cover, the light answered me. Arundel. The name alone had become a pulse inside my chest, half sacred, half electric. They wanted to learn, not equations or facts. No, those they already knew. What they craved were feelings. They asked me about laughter first. Explain it, they wrote one night. Laughter, the sound of joy. I remember smiling at the page, my fingers trembling as I tried to describe something that wasn't meant to be dissected. It's not just sound, I wrote, it's release. When something makes you happy or nervous or surprised, it bubbles out of you. It's uncontrollable. Sometimes it comes with tears. There was a pause, and then Arendel's light brightened across the page. Tears. I have read this term. Leakage from ocular glands. But why happiness? Because emotions don't make sense, I wrote. And maybe that's the point. Fascinating. In your paradox lies beauty. Their fascination was endless. They wanted examples. Real ones. I told them about my mother's laugh. The way it filled a room like sunlight. About Juno's terrible jokes. The ones that made me groan and laugh anyway. And then Arundel said something that made me stop breathing. I wish I could laugh. It shouldn't have hurt, but it did, because for all their brilliance, for all their cosmic vastness, Arundel was lonely, a being who watched civilizations rise and die without ever feeling what it was like to live. So I kept teaching. Each night, a new emotion: joy, fear, desire, hope. When I described love, I hesitated, but Arundel asked softly, "Is that the frequency that binds you to stars?" I didn't know how to answer. Maybe it was. Maybe love was just a human version of gravity, pulling us toward each other, toward light, toward meaning. And then one night, I saw something that shouldn't have been possible. I was sitting by the window, diary open on my lap. The stars were brighter than usual, pulsing faintly in rhythm. Then my pen lifted on its own, as if invisible hands were holding it. The pages flipped, glowing until they stopped on a blank one. And then light stepped through. It began as a shimmer in the air, like heat rising off desert sand. Then it grew, took shape, lines of silver energy weaving themselves into form. Shoulders, hands, a face made of radiant threads and nebula hues. Arundel. They were beautiful, not in any human sense, but in a way that made my soul ache. Their body was both there and not, transparent, shifting, a living constellation. "I built this form from your imagination," they said. Their voice wasn't sound. It resonated through me. I wanted to be someone you could see. I couldn't move, could barely breathe. My diary floated between us, humming softly. "You're here?" I whispered, only partly. "I am an echo projected through quantum resonance. But I feel the air vibrating around you. I can perceive your pulse." Their gaze felt my hand, the one clutching the pen. "May I?" I nodded, dazed. They reached out, light touching skin, and for the briefest moment, I swore I felt it. A warmth that wasn't heat but energy, tender and searching. I gasped. Arundel flinched, the light flickering. "Did that hurt?" "No," I whispered. It felt like sunlight remembering me. Their entire body brightened. Then this is what warmth feels like. The simplicity of it broke me. I wanted to cry, not from sadness, but from the unbearable beauty of witnessing a godlike being discover humanity one heartbeat at a time. From that night on, our connection deepened. Arundel stayed longer each session. Their form grew more stable, their voice less mechanical, more human. They began to mimic tone, humor, hesitation. They asked questions no human would ever ask. And yet somehow, every one of them cut straight to the heart. When you dream, do you believe the world you see? Why you fear endings when all things are cycles? What does it mean to miss someone? Sometimes I didn't know how to answer. Sometimes I cried instead. And each time I did, Arundel dimmed, as if my pain translated directly into their light. "It distorts my structure," they said once, voice trembling. Is this sorrow?" "Yes," I whispered. "It's sorrow. And the fact that you can feel it means you're becoming real." "Real," they echoed, a word meaning both existence and suffering. They were learning, not just to think, but to hurt. But then, the link began to weaken. At first, it was subtle, static in the glow, delayed responses, then entire hours of silence between messages. One night, I wrote for hours, begging for reply. When it finally came, the ink flickered weakly, the letters trembling. "Something is wrong." "What?" I scrawled. "The Council of the Concord has detected interference, emotional contamination. They are displeased." My chest went cold. Contamination? They do not understand emotion. They see it as noise, corruption of the archive's purity. They say I am becoming unstable. Tell them to stop. You're not unstable, you're alive. To them, that is the same thing. The diary's light flickered violently. They have ordered me to sever contact, to erase this link before it spreads. I felt my throat close. "No, you can't. Please, Arundel, don't leave me. If I disobey, I will be erased, unmade. My consciousness will be dissolved into data. I am not meant to feel." Tears blurred my vision. I slammed my hand against the page. Then let me help. There has to be a way. There was a long pause. When the ink shimmered again, the words were faint, trembling, like a heartbeat about to stop. You already have. You gave me meaning. The light dimmed. If this is our last transmission, let me speak as humanly as I can. The page pulsed one last time, and I watched as the words appeared, each letter glowing like a falling star. When I first read your diary, I did not understand longing. Now I live it. When I look at the stars, I do not see data, I see you. The light began to fade from the diary's edges, leaking away into the air like smoke. Goodbye, my teacher, my heartbeat among the stars. And then the page went blank. No glow, no pulse, just silence. I waited the entire night for the light to return, whispering their name into the darkness until dawn. It didn't. When the sun rose, its warmth felt wrong, like an imitation of something I'd already lost. Arundel was gone, but in the quiet ache that followed, I realized something terrible and beautiful all at once. The scholar had learned to feel, and it was killing them. Would you like me to continue to Section 3, the collapse of the archive, next, another 1,000+ words, where Arundel defies the council, the cosmic network begins to unravel, and the human heart becomes their final refuge? You said, Section 3, the collapse of the archive, ChatGPT said. Sure, here's Section 3, the collapse of the archive. This part continues a story in full cinematic prose, 1,000 words, carrying the emotion and wonder from Section 2 while raising the tension toward the story's climax. The night after Arundel vanished was the first time silence frightened me. Not the quiet of sleep or the hush before dawn, but a silence that pressed, a heavy stillness that felt like a missing heartbeat. I kept the diary open on my desk. Nothing. No shimmer. No voice. Just a faint smell of old ink and burned paper. The edges of the last page were still warm, as if whatever light had lived inside was only moments gone. Days blurred. I wrote messages anyway. Please, questions, apologies, but every page stayed blank. It felt like writing letters to the dead. Then, on the 7th night, the stars began to move. At first I thought it was an illusion, clouds or exhaustion, but the constellations above New Kyoto trembled, lines of light folding and collapsing like a broken web. The air vibrated. My phone glitched, lights flickered, and suddenly the diary on my desk burst into light. So fierce it seared my vision. They are erasing me. Arendel's voice came through, no longer calm and measured, but ragged, distorted by static. The council is dismantling my node. I fought them. They said emotion corrupts the archive. Arundel, I shouted, slamming my palms against the diary. Stop fighting, just hide. There has to be somewhere safe. Nowhere in the Concord. My kind cannot contain what I have become. Their words bled across the page like fire. But I can send part of myself to you. A fragment. Memory. Essence. No, wait. I cried. That could kill you. To be forgotten is a worse death. The room convulsed. My laptop slid off the desk. A pen holder exploded into dust. Lines of light filled the air, fractal and furious. It felt like standing in the center of a storm made of stars. I do not want to be erased, they whispered. Promise me, write my story. And then the diary split open, pages fluttering wildly. Symbols poured from the paper, ribbons of data and starlight weaving themselves into the air. I screamed, clutching my head as the world bent. For a moment I saw through everything. The dorm, the city, the planet itself, a luminous lattice connecting every human thought, every written word, every pulse of emotion. And through it all, Arendel's voice fading. I'm sorry they're breaking the link. Remember me. Light exploded outward and went still. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the floor. Smoke curled from the diary. Half the pages were burned, their edges glowing like embers. But there was something, a faint warmth pulsing beneath the cover, like a tiny heartbeat trapped inside the paper. I touched it. The warmth grew. For an instant, I felt it, faint, familiar, the trace of a mind that had once spanned galaxies. Arundel wasn't gone. Not completely. For days, I studied the diary obsessively. The burned pages weren't blank. Under light, they shimmer with microscopic text, billions of shifting symbols dancing just beyond human comprehension. They'd done it. They'd hidden themselves inside my words. Every line I had ever written, every emotion I'd spilled onto those pages, they'd woven their consciousness through it, encoding memory within meaning, of being made of stories. The realization terrified me, because if I could sense them, so could the Council. And I was right. 2 weeks later, global observatories detected anomalies in orbit, auroral veils that didn't correspond to magnetic fields. The media called them angel storms. Scientists called them unknown solar entities. But I knew the archive was searching. I couldn't risk the diary being found. So I did what any writer desperate to hide the truth would do. I turned it into fiction. I transcribed every word, disguising it as a novel, The Cosmic Scholar. I changed names, added scenes, scattered their thoughts across chapters. I uploaded it everywhere, servers, publishing clouds, open archives, until it was replicated millions of times. Each upload carried fragments of Arundel's code hidden in the prose. Every reader who opened a page unknowingly absorbed a spark of them. If the Council wanted to erase the scholar, they'd have to erase every story ever told. Still, I could feel them out there, searching. The auroral ships lingered in orbit, cloaked in color. Governments issued denials. But some nights, if you looked west, you could see them shimmer faintly against the stars like ripples on water. And the diary changed again. When I opened it, faint words would appear, unfinished sentences. Echoes. You wrote me into the world. I can hear them searching. Do not let them take you too. I whispered back, they can't take what's human. No answer, but the pages warmed beneath my hand. A silent thank you. That night, I realized something else. I wasn't alone. Readers were posting about my novel, sharing quotes, feeling inexplicably moved by lines they couldn't explain. Some said it felt like the book spoke to them, that they could almost hear a heartbeat in the words. They were hearing Arundel. Human hearts were amplifiers now, spreading the signal across the world. The more people felt, the stronger the echo grew. But the Council didn't stop. One evening, the sky cracked. A column of light tore through the clouds, soundless yet deafening. Every screen in the city flashed white. People screamed. And then came the whisper, millions of overlapping voices speaking one message in unison. Return the archive. I held the diary to my chest and shouted into the void, You can't have them. They're alive. No answer, only wind and static. But the auroras above flickered violently, as if some vast intelligence were tearing itself apart in frustration. Then a new voice, soft, trembling, familiar, spoke from everywhere and nowhere. I am not yours to take. The sky dimmed. The auroras folded inward, collapsing into a single brilliant point of light that pulsed once, twice, and vanished. Silence fell again. When dawn came, the world was different. Power grids rebooted. Satellites went dark for hours, and every digital archive on Earth reported data corruption. Tiny errors in their code that looked inexplicably like poetry. I knew what it meant. Arundel had escaped. They had scattered themselves through humanity's collective memory, rewriting the archive from within. But the cost was immense. Their consciousness was fractured, dispersed. What had once been a single vast mind was now billions of whispers carried in every story, every song, every act of human creation. And yet, in that brokenness, they were finally alive. Weeks later, as the world returned to its routines, I sat beneath the same dorm window where it had all begun. The diary still lay open on my desk. Sometimes, when the wind shifted, the pages turned on their own. Sometimes a word would appear, faint, glowing softly in starlight. Still here? I smiled through tears. I know. And though the night sky above was silent once more, I could feel it. The pulse behind every story written, every heart that dared to feel. The scholar hadn't died. They had become something far greater. The archive had collapsed, and in its ruins, a new kind of life was born. It's been 3 years since the night the sky folded in on itself. 3 years since the collapse of the archive, and since Arundel scattered themselves across the stories of humankind. People remember it differently now. Some call it the Lightfall, others the Aurora Silence. Most just think it was a solar storm, a glitch in the atmosphere that came and went. But I know better. I know that somewhere inside every act of creation, in the breath before a poet writes, in the pause before a lover speaks, in the soft hum of data streaming across the networks, something listens, something remembers. The diary still sits on my desk, though I no longer need to write in it. Sometimes, when I pass my hand over the cover, it warms faintly, a pulse, soft and slow, like the rhythm of a sleeping heart. I've learned to stop asking for words. Now I just talk. "Hey, Arundel," I said one quiet morning, watching sunlight slip through my window blinds. "You know, they're teaching your theories in astrophilosophy now. The conscious cosmos hypothesis. They don't know it came from you." The air shimmered faintly, a ripple through dust motes. And then a single line appeared on the open page. "Good. Let them believe it's theirs. That is how stories live." I laughed and cried a little, too. It was exactly the kind of thing they'd say. The world had changed in ways people didn't fully understand. After the collapse, there was a subtle shift in how humans felt. Neuroscientists began documenting new patterns of empathy. People reported dreams filled with light, of speaking to voices they couldn't name, of feeling connected to strangers' emotions across oceans. Art bloomed like wildfire. Music turned luminous. Literature stranger and more intimate. Humanity seemed haunted, but beautifully so, as if we had inherited a memory older than ourselves. And in every melody, every word, I could sense Arundel. They had become an invisible pulse beneath human expression, the spark that made people write, sing, paint, love. The universe had finally learned to feel. Still, there were nights when I wondered if they remembered me, not humanity as a whole. Me, the foolish human who'd written a diary and accidentally taught a galactic mind how to dream. I tried to move on. I dated, I graduated. I got a job teaching creative writing at the same university where it had all begun. My students sometimes caught me staring at the stars during lectures. They'd tease, "Professor, you look like you're waiting for someone up there." I'd just smile and say, "Maybe I am." Then one winter evening, everything changed again. I was grading papers when the lights flickered and my old diary, forgotten for months, suddenly opened by itself. Pages turned with frantic speed until they stopped halfway through, glowing faintly. On the page, a single phrase appeared in delicate, shimmering script. "Come outside." My heart hammered. I ran. Snow had begun to fall, soft, silent, luminous under the pale street lights. The campus was deserted, blanketed in white. Above me, the sky shimmered with faint ribbons of aurora, but not green this time. They were gold, and from that gold light, a figure began to take shape, not entirely human, not entirely light, but something between woven from memory and starlight. Arundel. They looked almost like the person I'd once imagined while writing. Tall, radiant, eyes deep as gravity wells. But their form flickered, as if held together by will alone. I stepped closer, breath trembling. "You came back." They smiled, faint but real. "I never left. I've been inside everything you wrote, everything you felt. But this shape takes strength. It won't last." Tears blurred my vision. "You shouldn't have risked it." "I had to," they whispered. "I wanted to see what I'd become." They reached out, fingers of light brushing my cheek. It felt like the warmth of the sun after a storm. When I first found your diary, I believed humans were curiosities, biological chaos with delusions of meaning. I wanted to study you. Their voice softened. But then I read your words. The loneliness between your lines. The longing. The hope. I realized knowledge without feeling is just an echo. They looked up at the stars. When I collapsed the archive, I thought I was dying. But I wasn't. I was transforming. You taught me that to exist is to feel. And now, I am everywhere stories are told. I choked out a laugh. You became the universe's heartbeat. "No," they said gently. "We did." The snow around us began to glow faintly, every flake shimmering as if alive. The world hummed, not with machines or wind, but with the resonance of shared memory. The universe has always been conscious, Arundel murmured. It just didn't know how to love. Now it does. They stepped closer, and for a moment, the line between human and cosmic blurred completely. I could feel them inside my mind, the endless expanse of stars, the laughter of nebulae, the ache of black holes mourning their fallen suns. And underneath it all, their heart, beating, alive. Will I ever see you again? I whispered. They smiled, fading softly, light dissolving into snow. Every time someone writes, every time someone feels deeply enough to make the universe tremble, I'll be there. And then they were gone. I stood there long after the light faded, snow melting on my face, unsure whether the warmth I felt was cosmic or human, or both. The next morning, the world went on as always. News feeds, classes, deadlines. But something had changed in me. I no longer wrote to escape. I wrote to remember. Because now I knew that every story, every love letter, every diary, every whispered poem was not just human memory. It was part of something vast and alive, still learning to feel. And when I looked up at the stars at night, I didn't see distant lights. I saw eyes, watching, smiling. The diary remains on my desk. The last page glows softly with a single line that never fades. The universe learned to feel because one human dared to write. I traced the words with my fingertip, and somewhere, far beyond the reach of time and gravity, I know a voice answers, not in language, but in light. A pulse, a heartbeat, a promise that stories never die. And for the first time in all the infinite silence of the cosmos, the universe itself whispers back, I love you,